the quiet river village of Ndalé, life was peaceful. The river provided everything: fish to fill their baskets and a way to make a living. Fishing was the heart of Ndalé, and each morning the men set out on their boats, trusting the waters to sustain them. Among the fishermen were two brothers, Kato and Juma. Kato, the elder, was respected by all. He was wise, steady, and reliable, his strong arms showing years of rowing and pulling heavy nets. His calm nature made people feel safe. Juma, the younger brother, was different, full of energy, restless, always dreaming beyond Ndalé. He longed for adventure and riches, though he was a skilled fisherman. His sharp eyes spotted fish easily, and he handled nets like second nature. The village women blushed at his charm, but Juma had already given his heart to Zina, a kind and gentle woman. Zina loved Juma and dreamed of their future, but lately she noticed his thoughts drifting. He seemed distant, as if something beyond the village was calling him. Each morning, Kato and Juma worked in perfect rhythm, admired by the village. Kato's steadiness balanced Juma's eagerness, but Juma's longing for something more grew stronger. Zina saw it too, fearing he would one day leave. One misty morning, before the sun had fully risen, the brothers paddled out onto the river. The village still slept, and only the soft splash of water and distant bird calls broke the silence. Juma rowed with energy, but his thoughts wandered. "Don't you ever wonder what's beyond this river?" he asked. Kato chuckled. "The river gives us all we need, Juma." Before Juma could reply, a sound floated across the water, a soft, haunting song. He froze, listening. "Do you hear that?" he whispered. Kato stopped paddling. "It's probably just the wind," but even he looked uncertain. "No, it's singing." Juma paddled toward the sound, ignoring Kato's cautious look. The melody grew clearer, soft and mysterious, as if the river itself was calling them. Up ahead, tangled in thick reeds, was something unusual. A figure shimmered in the morning light. As they drew closer, they realized she was no ordinary woman. Her skin glistened like water, and instead of legs, she had a long, silver-blue tail. Large, bright eyes filled with hope and worry stared up at them. "Please," she said, her voice as soft as her song. "Help me." Juma was mesmerized. He had heard stories of water spirits but never believed them, until now. Kato grabbed his arm. "We don't know who she is. This could be dangerous." Juma shook him off. "She needs us, Kato. Look at her, she's trapped." Ignoring his brother's warnings, Juma carefully pulled away the reeds. The mermaid winced but soon was free. "Thank you," she said, relief in her voice. "I am Nia." Juma smiled. "I'm Juma, and this is my brother Kato." Nia nodded at Kato, but her gaze lingered on Juma, as if drawn to him as he was to her. "I don't know how to repay you," she said softly. Juma shook his head. "You don't have to." But Nia reached out her hand, holding a small, glowing shell. "Take this," she said, "a gift for your kindness." As Juma took it, a strange thrill ran through him. "Thank you, Nia." With a final glance, Nia slipped back into the water, disappearing beneath the surface. As they paddled home, Kato watched Juma. "Be careful, Juma," he warned. "Not everything from the river is as kind as it seems." But Juma barely heard him. His mind was consumed by Nia, the mermaid with the haunting song. Days passed, yet Juma couldn't stop thinking about her. He went fishing as usual, but his thoughts drifted to the river. He could still hear her voice, see her shimmering scales. It was as if she had cast a spell over him. One evening, as the village settled for the night, Juma slipped away, and made his way to the riverbank. His heart pounded. Would she return? Minutes passed. Doubt crept in. Maybe she was gone. Then he heard it, the same soft, enchanting voice. His pulse quickened. Looking up, he saw Nia gliding toward him, her silver-blue tail shining under the fading sunlight. "You came back," he whispered. Nia smiled. "Did you ever doubt I would?" That night they talked for hours, sharing stories under the stars. Nia spoke of her life in the river, how she and her sisters explored its depths, and how she had always been warned to stay away from humans. "But there's something different about you," she admitted, her gaze lingering on him. "Something that makes me feel safe." Juma felt the same way. He couldn't explain it, but he was drawn to her in a way he had never felt before. She was more than just beautiful. There was something magical about her presence, something that made his world feel brighter, more alive. As they talked, Nia reached out and took his hand. Her touch was cool and soft, sending a shiver through him. "You saved me, Juma," she murmured. "I won't forget that." Juma blushed, squeezing her hand gently. "I'd do it again," he admitted. "I don't know why, but it feels like I was meant to meet you." Their secret meetings became a nightly ritual. Each evening, Juma returned to the river, eager to see Nia again. He spent hours with her, listening to her stories, laughing under the moonlight, growing closer with each passing night. But as his time with Nia deepened, he began neglecting his life in Ndalé. He woke up late, barely able to keep up with his fishing duties alongside Kato. His mind was constantly elsewhere, lost in dreams of the river and the mermaid waiting for him beneath its surface. Kato noticed the change. Juma, once full of energy and excitement, now seemed distant, distracted, almost like a shadow of himself. One morning, as they paddled out onto the water, Kato finally confronted him. "Juma, you've been acting strange lately," he said. "You disappear every evening, and even when you're here, it's like your mind is somewhere else." "What's going on?" Juma shrugged, forcing a casual smile. "It's nothing, Kato. Just thinking about things." Kato didn't believe him. "This isn't like you. Whatever it is, don't forget that we're a team. We always have been. I don't want anything coming between us." Juma nodded, trying to reassure his brother. "Of course, Kato, you know I'll always be here." But deep down, he knew the truth. His heart was no longer in the village. It was drifting further and further away, caught in the pull of the river and the enchantment of the mermaid who waited for him each night. And it wasn't just Nia anymore. One evening, Nia introduced Juma to her friends, 2 other mermaids, Abeni and Sefu. Each was as mesmerizing as Nia, but in their own way. Abeni was playful and bold, her laughter light as she teased Juma. "Forget about Nia," she whispered, pressing close to him. "You know I could make you happier." She draped glistening river stones around his neck, her fingers lingering as she gazed at him with mischief in her eyes. Sefu, on the other hand, was quiet and mysterious. She rarely spoke, but when she did, her words left him breathless. One night, as they sat close to the water, she murmured, "Why waste your time with Nia when I could be yours?" Her eyes held a promise he couldn't resist. Juma found himself entangled in a dangerous game. He met each mermaid separately, carefully hiding his secrets, savoring the thrill of being desired by them all. They each thought they were his only love, each whispered sweet promises in his ear, and each brought him gifts from the depths of the river, pearls, shimmering shells, sparkling stones. Juma felt invincible, intoxicated by the attention, lost in a world that felt far richer than the simple life of a fisherman. The mermaid's love for Juma began to turn into something more, a quiet rivalry. Unbeknownst to him, whispers spread among Nia's sisters. They had seen her meetings with the human. They had watched as he smiled, laughed, and whispered to each of them in turn, and now they too longed for his love. Every night, as the sky darkened and the river calmed, Juma returned to the water's edge, no longer bound by duty, no longer thinking of Ndalé, or even of Zaina, his fiancée. Zaina, who still waited. For him, Zaina, who was beginning to suspect that Juma was slipping away. She tried to reach him, to talk to him, to bring him back to her. But each time he brushed her off, making excuses about fishing trips, about needing time alone. And all the while the river whispered his name, and the mermaids waited, their love turning to something else, something dangerous. Juma was no longer the kind and humble fisherman he once was. The days of waking up early, casting nets and laughing with his brother Kato were gone. Now he dressed in the finest clothes, and his hut overflowed with treasures, shimmering pearls, glowing shells and sparkling stones, all gifts from the Zara, mermaids he had secretly charmed. Each night, Juma would meet with Nia, or her sisters, Sefu and Malaika, by the river, whispering sweet words and making promises. They adored him, and in return they brought him rare treasures from the deepest waters. With every gift, Juma's pride grew. Why should I fish when I can have all the riches I want? He thought. He no longer cared about the hard work that once filled his days. He left Kato to fish alone, ignoring his brother's worried glances. "You've changed, Juma," Kato said one morning. "You don't help anymore. You don't even speak to Zaina." Juma only laughed. "I have more than enough now. Why work when the river gives me all I need?" But back in the village, Zaina, his fiancée, was heartbroken. Juma barely spoke to her. The warmth in his eyes had disappeared. No matter how much she tried to reach him, he pushed her away. Still, Zaina was strong. She continued her daily work, helping the village, and soon another noticed her kindness. His name was Omari, a brave young warrior respected and wise. "One who cannot see your worth is blind," Omari told her gently. Zaina blinked in surprise. His words were kind, and for the first time in a long time, she felt hope. Meanwhile, Juma's greed only grew. No treasure was ever enough. He began to think of ways to gain even more. "They adore me," he thought, smugly. "They'll give me anything." But beneath the surface, the river began to stir. The waters, once calm, grew restless, sensing the mermaid's heartbreak. One night, Nia went to meet Juma, excited to share a secret. But when she arrived, she found Sefu waiting too. "What are you doing here?" Nia asked, her voice uncertain. Sefu frowned. "I could ask you the same. I came to see Juma. He belongs to me." Nia's heart pounded. "No, he is mine. We are having a child together." Sefu's face paled. "A child? But Juma is having my child." Before they could speak further, Malaika stepped forward from the shadows, her voice breaking. I am also carrying Juma's child." The three mermaids stared at one another, their hearts filling with pain and betrayal. They had each believed Juma loved only them. But now, the truth was clear. He had deceived them all. Their sorrow turned to fury. The river churned, waves crashing violently against the shore. The waters, once gentle, roared in anger. Deep beneath the sea, Queen Zara, ruler of the mermaids, felt the pain of her daughters. Rising from the depths, she swam swiftly to the river's edge, her presence like a brewing storm. Juma, waiting for yet another secret meeting, froze when he saw her. A deep fear gripped his heart. Queen Zara's voice boomed like thunder. "Juma, you have brought pain to my daughters. You have taken their love and twisted it for your own greed. Do you understand what you have done?" I didn't mean to," Juma stammered. Queen Zara's eyes burned with fury. You knew exactly what you were doing. You have abandoned your people, cast aside your own family, and left nothing but sorrow in your wake. Now you must face the consequences. Cato stepped forward, bowing low. Please, your majesty, he is my brother. He has lost his way, but he did not wish to cause harm. Queen Zara's gaze softened as she looked at Cato. You are a true brother, loyal and kind. You deserve none of the shame Juma has brought upon your family. Then she turned back to Juma, her face hard once more. But his betrayal cannot go unpunished. The three mermaids, each holding a child, stood together, their faces filled with sorrow and anger. Queen Zuberi looked at them with deep sadness, her voice gentle but firm. My daughters, I grant you this mercy, she said. Return to the sea, where your children will be raised with love and care. They will be blessed, even though their father has failed them. But Juma shall never see them again. His greed and arrogance have cost him that right. Juma stood frozen, shame tightening around his heart like a heavy chain. Queen Zuberi's voice rang out over the water. Juma, you took the gifts of the sea and turned them into tools of greed. You will be cut off from the river, from the ocean, and from the love you once knew. With a final command, she sealed his fate. Before his eyes, the pearls and treasures crumbled into dust, vanishing like mist. Nia, tears in her eyes, whispered, You could have been so much more, Juma, but your heart was filled with greed. The mermaids disappeared into the depths, and the river calmed, erasing all traces of Juma's betrayal. He stood alone on the shore, his wealth gone, his future shattered. Cato, watching his broken brother, gave one last sorrowful look before turning. Away, stripped of riches and pride, Juma returned to Ndalé, his head lowered under the weight of his mistakes. The villagers whispered as he passed, their once admiring eyes now filled with pity. He had thought himself greater than them, but now he was just another fisherman, forced to earn a living the honest way. The deepest wound came when he saw Zara. Once his fiancée, she had waited for him, hoping he would return to her with the same heart she had loved. But time had moved forward, and so had she. She now stood beside Baraka, a strong and honorable man who had given her the love and stability Juma had thrown away. Juma watched from a distance as Zara laughed, happiness radiating from her in a way he had never truly appreciated. The love he had taken for granted was now beyond his reach. He knew there was no going back. Nights became the hardest. Alone in his hut, he dreamed of Nia, of the life he had almost had, of the children he would never know. Their faces haunted him, their betrayal a weight he carried each day. The river still flowed, but it no longer welcomed him. Its songs, once filled with promise, now whispered only of loss. His story became a warning to the village. Parents told their children about the fisherman who had everything and lost it all. Cato, ever wise, gathered the young ones and spoke. Greed will always lead to destruction. The river gives, but it also takes. Respect is worth more than gold, and love is more precious than pearls. Juma lived on in Ndalé, but he was only a shadow of the man he once was. The world moved forward, but he remained, burdened by his choices. And so, the river continued to flow, carrying with it the lesson of Juma, the man who let greed steal everything that truly mattered. See you in the next video. Subscribe now for gripping stories that keep you on the edge of your seat. Like and share to keep African storytelling alive. Turn on notifications, don't miss a single tale.